Have you ever heard of the World War II general who lived by the motto, illegitimi non carborundum? Well, let's meet Vinegar Joe. Today I want to talk about General Joseph Stilwell. He's better known as Vinegar Joe, and he was a man whose sharp tongue and relentless drive and a refusal to back down made him one of World War II's most interesting figures. He doesn't quite have the notoriety of an Eisenhower or a Patton or even an Omar Bradley, but he led with grit, and he was deep in the jungles of the Pacific Theater. He carried a deep sense of justice for his men, and he lived by a phrase that still resonates: illegitimi non carborundum. Don't let the bastards grind you down. But to understand Joe Stilwell's story, we need to go back to the beginning. Joseph Stilwell was born in 1883 in Florida, but he grew up in New York in a family that valued education and discipline. And he entered West Point, and he graduated in 1904, and soon found himself in postings across the world, from the Philippines to France during World War I. And he wasn't a desk general. He learned languages, he immersed himself into local cultures, and he built this reputation for being a sharp observer of the world around him. And Stilwell's path eventually would take him to China, where he discovered a deep understanding of Chinese politics and culture. He learned the language, and he gained insights that would become critical during World War II. He also developed his trademark, just plain-spoken, often profane style, which earned him the nickname Vinegar Joe. And those were for his biting comments and his refusal to sugarcoat the truth. Some of his soldiers at Fort Benning had drawn a cartoon of him kind of like emerging from a vinegar bottle. And when he found it, rather than taking offense to it, he actually embraced it, pinned it up in his office, had photographs taken of it. Those photographs were distributed to friends, and he really embraced that moniker. When World War II erupted, Stilwell was sent to command American forces in the China-Burma Indian Theater, and this was one of the war's harshest and least understood fronts. He was appointed chief of staff to the Chinese leader Chiang Kai-shek, while overseeing American efforts to keep China in the fight against the Japanese. And the environment there was brutal. You had dense jungles, steep mountains, just relentless monsoons, drought, rain, and just constant logistical nightmares. And in 1942, when Japanese forces advanced and Burma finally fell, Stilwell and his men were forced into a grueling 140-mile retreat on foot into India. He refused to be airlifted out. Rather, he chose to endure the same hunger and exhaustion and mud as his soldiers. And he earned their respect. And he didn't mince words about it. He said, "I claim we got a hell of a beating. We got run out of Burma, and it is as humiliating as hell." Yet, even in defeat, Stilwell vowed that he would return, and he was determined to reclaim Burma and open supply lines to China. One of Vinegar Joe's major challenges was constructing the Lado Road. It was later named the Stilwell Road, and this involved hacking through unforgiving jungles and mountains to connect India to China, and that way they could ensure a steady flow of supplies. This supply line was vital for China's resistance against Japan, and Stilwell pushed relentlessly for its completion. He also supported Merrill's Marauders. They were a U.S. Special Forces unit that fought deep behind the enemy lines in Burma. Their job was to disrupt Japanese supply lines and gather intelligence that would prove crucial in the campaign to once again retake Burma. But despite these efforts, Stilwell's time in China was defined by constant clashes with Chiang Kai-shek. Stilwell saw Chiang as corrupt and unwilling to commit to fighting Japan. Instead, he was hoarding supplies and just to prepare for an eventual conflict, not with the current conflict with Japan, but a future conflict with the Chinese communists. Now, Chiang, on the other hand, saw Stilwell as arrogant and dismissive of Chinese sovereignty and overly demanding. And so their relationship was strained. And it created some diplomatic challenges that extended all the way back to Washington, D.C. So throughout all of this, Stilwell embodied the phrase, illegitimi non carborundum. Now, this isn't real Latin. This is a mock Latin. But it's a soldier's phrase, and it means don't let the bastards grind you down. It captured how he approached the endless obstacles that he faced, bureaucratic red tape, the harsh conditions of jungle warfare, and the complex relationship of alliances. Became a motto that he lived by, it reminding his men and himself to keep pushing no matter what. Stilwell was known for his simplicity, his toughness. He wore plain uniforms without ribbons, and he lived like the soldiers he commanded. He didn't separate himself from hardships of war. He shared tents, meals, and mud, and was never afraid to speak his mind, even if it meant with clashing with his superiors. In 1944, the tensions between Stilwell and Chiang Kai-shek reached a breaking point, and President Franklin Roosevelt, needing to maintain China's alliance in the war, recalled Stilwell. It was a blow to him personally, and to a man who had dedicated himself to the mission in Asia. But he didn't quit. He was reassigned to command the 10th Army in Okinawa, preparing for the invasion of Japan, the Japanese home islands, before the war ended. Joseph Stilwell died in 1946 from stomach cancer, closing the chapter on a life that was defined by relentless service, honesty, and an unyielding commitment to the men under his command. His ashes were scattered over the Pacific Ocean, that vast theater where he had fought so hard to make a difference. Stillwell's legacy, like I mentioned earlier, is often overshadowed by other figures from World War II, like MacArthur, like Eisenhower. But his contribution to the China-Burma Indian theater was critical. Those contributions were critical to the war effort. He showed that leadership isn't about showy speeches or grandstanding. It's about facing hardship alongside your people and calling out the inefficiency when you see it, and refusing to let obstacles, political or otherwise, stand in the way of getting the job done. His life reminds us that sometimes the most impactful leaders are the ones who push through the hardest challenges with integrity, determination, and a fierce commitment to the truth. Because, as Vinegar Joe Stilwell would remind us, don't let the bastards grind you down. If you picked up something new today, something educational, something that sparked your interest, hey, leave a like, a comment, a follow, a share for more things that you should know by being alive, because stories of leaders like Vinegar Joe teach us how to keep pushing on even when it's hard. Thanks for watching.